All right, so why be pro-immigrant? You need to get new skills and ideas into your labor force. A multicultural society leads to more innovation and creativity, is better for society. But those who are against that say that you're getting people competing for scarce jobs, so this drives down wages because there's more people to hire than there are jobs, so employers can really exploit their workers. And that there's really a lot of tension around assimilation. How much do you support a group of immigrants' ability to sort of be in their own communities and support what's unique about their culture versus how much do you try to get them to integrate into the dominant culture and feel like they really are part of that culture. So for your clicker question, developed democracies have a larger service sector than an industrial one. What has been the result of this economic shift? A, less economic growth since the service sector produces goods that are intangible. B, more economic inequality since the highest paid service jobs require skills only available to those with expensive educations. C, less competitiveness since services rely on innovation. And the answer is B. Okay, so we can talk about why that is in class. All right, so politics and the economy. Okay, how have that? I can't think of the right word. So how's the intertwining between the two changed? So there have been some trends since the 1970s. Post-industrialism, which we talked about with the United States, that you get growth in the service sector, but not industry, due to forces of globalization. Industry, manufacturing has really been moving to other countries as those that produce these goods look for places where they can pay workers lower wages and thereby make more money. And then also you've had a growth in, a decrease in the welfare state. So with globalization and people or governments sort of bowing to this pressure to sort of streamline things, unions decreasing in power as the jobs go away, not being able to protect worker benefits, you've seen a decrease in the welfare state. All right, so if you couldn't name the service sector jobs before, here they are for you, so you can see to them. And when you have a service economy, it becomes very difficult for people to transfer from one job to another because you have to learn a whole new set of skills. And so when a service or an industry leaves an area, it becomes very difficult for workers to get the retraining that they need. It also puts a premium on college degrees. You really need a college degree to succeed in the service sector. We talked about the loss of manufacturing with manufacturing moving to other areas. And you're seeing this under President Trump, that workers in the country demand trade barriers to protect their jobs. So we do see that with President Trump just raised the tariffs on washing machines and solar panels. It kind of seems like a random grouping, but hey, lobbying, it works, so people do it. Okay, review lobbying and lobbyists and what they're allowed to do and not to do. And then it leads to greater inequality in society, and you can see this being that we're in Ohio, we're in a Rust Belt state, right? So people used to be able to make good wages and support their families on manufacturing jobs, and then with the loss of those jobs, there hasn't been a comparable place for them to work to make those same sort of wages. So you may go from making, $25 to $30 an hour working on the line in a plant, and then that goes away, and Amazon comes to town for the distribution center, and you're back to making $12 an hour, which is just something you can't support your family on. So, how do governments respond to these challenges with economies? So they may take on debt and spend on government projects and decrease tax burdens in an attempt to help their citizens. They may try and spend to hire citizens. They may spend on job training programs, but this is unsustainable because eventually you're going to have to pay for all that debt that you've taken on. You can raise taxes, but voters will probably punish you for that. And then you may get firms leaving the country because they're trying to avoid paying those high taxes. And in the age of globalization, they can do so. So for a while, the United States and our high corporate tax rate, you're actually seeing companies combine with those based in another country, like say the UK or Ireland, that had lower tax rates. And they would do this and say, hey, we're headquartered here now to avoid the taxes in the United States. So, welfare state, and again, there's another cartoon for you guys to look at and analyze there, so you can take a look at that. In general, people are like, yes, in favor of welfare state, but with an expanding safety net, you also have to expand government spending. So maybe not the thing that you really want to do, but maybe it is, right? So it just kind of depends on your political values. So the welfare state balances out income inequality. So you're going to have less extreme poverty in countries that have a strong social safety net. Lower infant mortality for a variety of reasons, but a lot of it's because with access to healthcare, people are going in and getting mothers would be going, expectant mothers would be going in and getting the healthcare that they need, and then the infants would be cared for afterwards. And a lot of times, what leads to infant mortality is women not getting the prenatal care that they need, or feeling stressed out because they don't know how they're going to pay for having a child. There's been some really interesting studies done, and there's been some really interesting pieces put together on NPR about the effect of being minority, especially being Black, on infant mortality and maternal mortality in the United States. So that's on NPR if you guys want to take a look at that. Going along with that, life expectancy increases when you have a strong welfare state. Again, makes sense with all of the access to care that you would receive. And then literacy and education improve because education is provided for. For a long time in Britain, university was free. Now you have to pay, but it's still going to be less than you have to pay in the United States. However, a strong welfare state is supported by the young who work. It's supported by working age people. And those who retire are not contributing to the system. They're taking from the system. So this demographic crisis is arising in developed democracies in Europe and Japan because their population is aging and is not being replaced by immigrants or new birth. The United States is not in this situation yet, but if we cut immigration levels too much, we will eventually get to the same place as these other developed democracies. Okay, so with the changing economies, with the demographic crisis, how can governments respond? So you could cut benefits, but then you go back on all those things that you gained. So you go back on your infant mortality rates and improved literacy and education. So in the end, it ends up harming your economy. You don't want a lack of educated citizens. More educated citizens lead to more economic growth. The public is not going to be happy with any cutbacks to the welfare state. So you may trigger some destabilization in your political system. To really fix sort of flaws in the system with the welfare state, you have to have political agreement and oversight. So what we're seeing with Obamacare was that the acrimony between the two parties is leading to ineffectiveness in that fix to the healthcare system. Okay, what else could you do? And so we talked about in the United States have more immigration, but that goes back to the issues we talked about earlier, where you have people resentful of immigrants and fearful, which is what xenophobia is, fear of foreigners. And then that question of assimilation, how much you can raise the retirement age, but again, older people vote, and they're not going to vote to have their retirement age raised. So we run into that. So young people, vote more. You know, I'm always telling you guys to vote. And then you could try and open up job markets to make it more flexible, so you get more part-time workers, that people could work from home while being parents, which would open up the labor markets to more people that currently aren't working, but that could cause issues with the economy, and it could lead to employers cutting back benefits, so that may not be a great solution. All right, so in response to the most recent financial crisis, most developed democracies have A. Cut social welfare programs in order to minimize government spending and debt. B. Increased social welfare programs to try to protect the population from economic hardships. C. Kept the same spending policy they had prior to the crisis. Or D. It depends. Some countries have cut spending while others have increased it. All right, you're going to find out what the answer is on the next two slides. So the UK, they went for austerity. And in austerity, they taxed people more and they cut government services. So as expected, there were protests, even leading to riots in 2011, and then they had a decline in growth. However, since then, they actually are now experiencing growth again. So the conservatives argue, hey, our plan worked. And there's some disagreement about that, but so far the UK seems to be bounding back. But people are now living in an age with higher taxes and fewer services. Even though the economy recovered, the UK has not translated that into savings for university fees again. The UK still isn't growing at the rate that it wants to, and so they may change their policies here, although they're in such a weird place because of Brexit. So it's kind of hard to say what's going to happen with Britain and their policies, because it's unsure what's going to happen to their economy once they fully untangle themselves from the European Union. There have been some scandals in Britain with companies that have not been able to fulfill on contracts. There, of course, was the public housing fire in this past year. So there's a lot of eyes on the current Conservative government and what they're doing to really protect Britons and look out for their interests, especially those that are lower income, working class Britons. All right, so that is Developed Democracies. Hope you enjoyed this, I don't know what to call it, production, but I'm going to go watch the Olympics now, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Bye!